Anthony taking a stand for social change. So 2 weeks ago, he posted a photo, you can see it here, Bill Russell, Muhammad Ali, Jim Brown, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, with a lengthy message, essentially declaring the time is now, he's all in, it's time to demand change and to take action. Then he followed that up by joining LeBron, Chris Paul, and Dwayne Wade, opening the ESPYs with a call to action. And I want to point out that this was the players' idea. They reached out to the ESPYs for this. Then yesterday in L.A., he held a town hall meeting, inviting members of the community, police officers, Team USA, WNBA players who sat down, discussed the racial tension that's plaguing our country and how this can properly be addressed. So, Max, now that Melo's an activist on the court, is there more pressure for him to win? Less pressure. Less pressure for Carmelo to win right now. First of all, he has the respect of his peers. Yep. In fact, if anything, and he's a great player, he's among the greatest, I won't even say offensive players, he's among the greatest ISO scorers in the history of basketball. There's nothing he can't do. Paul Pierce was asked, who's the toughest guy to guard? Carmelo Anthony. He has the respect of his peers. In fact, he's usually rated, for a lot of his career, he was top 5, still rated by, as top 10 by most, put ahead of guys like Paul George when he was no longer better than guys like Paul George, who are real two-way players. But he has that kind of respect from his peers because they know the things he does, the things on the court, are extremely hard to do. They know he's mastered every kind of aspect of one-on-one scoring. They can't, and they know how hard it is to do, so they're like, wow, he's this great player, and he's put in certain ways, not on LeBron's level, because no one is, but on the level more or less of guys who are better than him, like Durant. I think there's a recognition now, as people are getting more sophisticated in terms of the way they evaluate players, that he's not quite on that level, that he's on a franchise until very recently was dysfunctional, and who knows still, I mean, Dolan still owns the team. He's in a position where, Derrick Rose's delusions of grandeur aside, no one's really expecting maybe they'll win a playoff series if everything comes together for them right now. He's not even really the centerpiece of the team's plans in the long term, which is Kristaps Porzingis at this point. And he's physically a little bit in decline. He's been hurt. You look at his numbers, they're down, even on a per-possession basis, that kind of stuff. And he's playing in a league where his style of play has become less important over time. It's gotten much more to a kind of spread, pick and roll, open offense, and he's a kill you in ISO type of player. So I think because of all those things, people realize a championship may not be in the offing for Carmelo Anthony. And by attaching himself, and I don't want to say attaching, leading on important social issues now, he's actually, I think, in a strange way, alleviated the pressure to do something on the court. He has become something different than just a guy who needs to win a championship to validate his career.
Finish?
There's a pause. I'm nervous.
I completely disagree with you. And it's difficult for me because there are very few people that I'm more fond of as a professional athlete than Carmelo Anthony, who I've known personally for over a decade. He's a good brother. But I say this not just to you and the audience out there. I'll look Carmelo Anthony dead in the face while I deeply, deeply, deeply appreciate all the things that he is doing in the community to bring attention to the plights that we're all suffering from, not just as a community, but as a nation right now, and bringing attention to it. While I deeply appreciate that, my brother, I'm also a Knicks fan, and I'll be damned if there's less pressure on him to win because of this. You must be crazy, Max. You must be crazy.
Not the first time I heard that accusation.
When I walk into Madison Square Garden this year...
You're expecting a championship?
No, I didn't say that. But what I'm saying is, don't tell me there's less pressure. And I'm going to tell you why. Carmelo Anthony has been in the NBA for 13 years. He's been to the playoffs 10 times. He has gotten out of the first round twice. Now, I'm sorry. No. Black Lives Matter, social issues, I get it. I'm with you. Tell me when and where I'm showing up. But when I roll up into the Garden and I watch you in that uniform, I expect more. You making $122 million. You average 25 points per game for your career. This brother shows up in the postseason, averaging better than 23. Okay? You got out of the first round twice. Now, damn it, no.
But what does that tell you?
Listen, let me tell you something right now.
Has he been overrated?
Wait a minute. I'm not going to sit up there and say him as a talent has been overrated, because I know offensively he's the real deal. But what I'm trying to say is, at some point in time, think about the company you keep. Now, Chris Paul doesn't have a championship either. Here's my point. Melo has the most perfect name on the planet for him, because he true for the most part. That brother's Melo. Melo's, we gonna be all right. Constantly positive, enthusiastic. He might get a little frustrated in moments, but for the most part, we gonna be all right, Stephen. Relax. You know, he ain't Lamar Odom. We go out to the crib. Relax. Don't worry about back in the day when they won a championship a few years back. No, Melo's not like that, but he is Melo. Why I can't say this about Chris Paul, even though Chris Paul hasn't won a championship either? Because Chris Paul is a pit bull, and it makes him sick to his stomach. You can feel it being around him. You don't even want to be around Chris Paul after he loses. He got attitude with everybody. He's just a pit bull. You understand? He wants it that bad. LeBron's a three-time champion. LeBron has gone to 6 consecutive NBA Finals. Dwayne Wade can go to Chicago all he wants and be with that average team that he thinks is going to compete. He is a 3-time champion. I have nothing to say. But when you ain't getting out the first round, that disturbs me. Here's where it gets worse. I have a problem with Carmelo Anthony playing in the Olympics this year. First of all, I have a problem with all of them because I don't think any of them should be over there, because I don't think it's safe. I don't think it's safe, and I think it's nasty. What we've read, I think it's nasty. When you listen to Greeny talk about the water being the equivalent of raw sewage, you don't need to be there. You know, they're just sharing the borders with 10 different nations and Al-Qaeda and ISIS out there. You don't need to be. That's my opinion. That's just me. But you're there. Fine. But for Carmelo Anthony, I don't think he needs to be there. You know why? He already got 2 gold medals. What the hell, you want a third? That you're fine, you get the third. That don't gloss over the lack of an NBA championship. And what I'm trying to say is that I need Melo, who is one of the elite players in this game, who is big time. It's my brother. I got nothing but love for him. But don't tell me it's less pressure. There's more pressure, because if I'm a Knicks fan, I see you in the news for all of these other reasons, and I appreciate it. But I also want you in the news for this. In May, at least May, if not June, could you give me May? May, man, not the end of April.
What are you complaining about? You're older than me. You've seen the Knicks championship. I've never seen the Knicks championship.
Please, I was 6 years old. Come on, man.
I was 0 years old.
5 years old, really, because I turned 6 in October. My point is, I want to see it, man. I mean, May, you ain't have to give me June, because if you run into LeBron, I respect it. But right now, I'm looking at the Knicks with Derrick Rose running his mouth, Joakim Noah, Kristaps Porzingis, and Melo. To me, based on what I've seen in the Eastern Conference, there's no reason on earth why I can't see the Knicks against Cleveland in a conference final.
Okay, I don't care if his name was Intense Anthony. I don't care if his name was Stephen A. Anthony. It comes to a point where people have to admit, look, what we thought about a guy and what level he was on was wrong. I used to catch flack a couple of years ago because if you watched both guys, you knew that Chris Bosh was clearly superior to Kevin Love. Chris Bosh was playing on a championship team. He was playing third fiddle. He played defense on every possession. He was playing away from the basket on purpose. Like, there were all these things he was doing that sometimes he would wind up with 7 points and 8 rebounds, and the stats didn't look good. But if you watched the impact on the game, you know Chris Bosh was all-world. And if you watched Kevin Love as the primary offensive force on a sub-500 team, you knew that Bosh was better than him. But the numbers all said Kevin Love was better than Chris Bosh, and so people bought into it.
I don't know if anybody who bought into that.
Oh, a lot of people bought into it.
I don't know who they are, because Kevin Love was never better than Chris Bosh.
I was trying to tell people at the time. You should see my Twitter timeline.
And Kevin Love is good. I don't want to disrespect him.
No, of course, but he's not Chris Bosh.
But he wasn't better than Chris Bosh.
Same thing with Carmelo Anthony and Paul George. A couple of years ago, it was pretty obvious Paul George is a better basketball player than Carmelo Anthony. Carmelo Anthony could do more difficult things more easily on offense, but as an overall impact player, both sides of the floor, defense. Paul George was a two-way player. Carmelo Anthony isn't. Maybe it's time for people to recognize that the player they thought Carmelo was, which is an elite, all-time great kind of player, is not actually who he was. That if you're a one-way player, the best you're going to be is a very good player.
I am
not
willing to
quite
concede.
A championship
I am willing to concede that Carmelo Anthony is not a great two-way player because he doesn't play defense that great. But offensively, he is legit.
No, scoring and offense. But the ball doesn't always move with Carmelo.
Well, you know what? Like Allen Iverson said, I give you the ball. Ultimately, it touches 4 or 5 different people and gets back to me with about 5 seconds on the shot clock. Evidently, you didn't want it. What you want me to do? That's how I look at Melo with that. There is some truth to that. Yep. Melo is a big-time offensive player. I'm not talking about any of that. I'm talking about results. You had an opportunity to leave to Chicago, albeit for less money. You didn't do it. You had an opportunity to go other places when you left Denver. You didn't do it. You had an opportunity to hold Phil Jackson's feet to the fire instead of capitulating to what the Zen master wants to do, Mr. Triangle himself.
He got 11 chips. And 2 as a player.
No. Yeah, but what is an executive?
Well, I mean, let's see. You seem to think they can wind up in the conference finals this year.
They're 49 and 115. Get it done. Okay. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying anything else other than get it done. That's all I'm saying.
Maybe just admit the fact that Carmelo isn't good enough to be the best player on a championship team.
I'm not willing to concede that yet.
Here's what I take away from this. Melo with a call to action. We're giving him props. We all appreciate it. And now Stephen A. with a call to action back to Melo.
All I'm saying is
Stephen A. Anthony. That's what we want to see. Intensity.
He is Stephen Anthony. We got to go to break.
Everything that Melo is.
We're going to break.
Win, damn it!
You've been off for a month. We haven't gotten your thoughts on Westbrook. We're doing that next. The Thunder have enough money now to offer Russell Westbrook a max deal. Should he stay in OKC? That is the question. Next.